we were just chewing the fat. Hey, y'all, if you're there, turn your screens on so you can see Willie and interact a little bit more. We have it set up where he is able to see more people. So
I'm able to see more people. Amy is still going to do everything as usual. What did you say you were going to be, Johnny Carson and Ed McMahon?
No, you're Johnny. I just will sit back here and go, heh, heh, heh.
So you think, Amy, that if I click on someone's image, I can enlarge them? But
you should be able to. You should be able to double click, or as they speak, they should be able to be enlarged.
Maybe that's how it's going to be. Maybe it's as they speak, because one of the things that would be great to be able to do, and we might not be able to refine this until tomorrow, would be for me to see the puppets that anyone has brought. Even though, again, I'm going with a tiny screen here. I mean,
there's Abby. Well, I saw Clara, and then I think I saw Miss Ione there. There she is.
Yeah, we're here.
All right, I have sound on.
Clara's now hiding behind the text.
Right.
I love this technology. It's like, whoa, there she is over there. Oh, no, she's behind it.
Everyone feel free to speak questions. Some people have texted that said they're not able to do that on their computer, that they can see you but can't interact. So I'll still watch the chat. And some people just don't have webcams on their computers. So.
Sure. I think it might be simplest to do this like as kind of just a Q&A thing. I mean, because if we were all together in a room, informally somebody could ask a question, I could answer it, and obviously it'll be somewhat relevant to everybody, even if it's targeted to a specific age or.
Right. I find that if one person asks a question, usually, pretty much there's someone else who has the same question. So feel free. I'm watching the chat, so feel free to put things in there. Feel free to take over the mic. It's open for you guys, so you can speak to Willie directly.
Yeah, if anybody has a question or a comment or even a puppet that they brought with them that you'd like to show the rest of us, that'd be great. I still am having very limited luck seeing people. I can see 2 of you.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes.
All right, try the...
Everybody else's mics are muted. I do see that. And I'm wondering if...
The very top, there's that top button in the top right button. You can click gallery view, and you should be able to see 12.
I can see 12, but almost every single one is just a gray outline.
Yeah, they might not have cameras as part of the problem. So, yeah.
It's possible that only 3 of the 12 have cameras.
Sarah and Debbie, you were on call. There's Lauren.
Yeah. So I don't have any questions.
That parrot just went away. Oh, there it is. Yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to lean way in because you're also tiny. So I'm a little strange from your point of view, I'm sure. Oh, excellent. Look at that.
The mouse doesn't move very well with this puppet.
It moves a little, though, doesn't it?
It moves better this way. It'll do this, like a, but it won't really, talk down very well, It doesn't do this part. It's a little disappointing. I can't believe KDLA doesn't have better puppets lying around for me to use. Especially since I'm the technology consultant. Don't they know this is important?
Yes. Well, it really is kind of a trick, and to actually find puppets that work easily, it's kind of like when someone is learning guitar. Usually they have a guitar that's very hard to play objectively because it's not very expensive. And they think, oh my God, this is hard. Whereas if you have one that's easy to play, it's the same thing with the puppets. I know a costume stage designer and costume designer in Petaluma, California, who's helped redesign my puppets, which came from a variety of sources, so that they actually fit my hand, so that the mouths actually work. And often what we're using are kids puppets that you have to somehow jam on your hand or make work. And for those of you who, in the old days, everybody knew a seamstress somewhere, or could sew, or could could lay the thing out, take the pattern apart. Now, not so much. Nevertheless, it's still probably your best bet if you really get involved in doing this, unless you yourself are not particularly adept at making patterns and modifying things. Without our friend in Petaluma, it would have been virtually impossible. But I'll just take a puppet up there to say, okay, this is too small for your hand, or we've got to somehow stabilize the back here so it doesn't wiggle around. These little refinements make a huge difference.
I think we just need to break the neck on this parrot and just rip it out, and then it'll move quite nicely.
If you do have someone, if you yourself or have a friend who's really good at making clothes, costumes, whatever, yeah, it's a little bit. You have to use acupuncture so they don't feel it. But you can definitely take them apart and put them back together. And who's up here? I have to peer in because the image can't make you bigger. You're a skunk. You are a skunk. Yes.
Cute, Abby.
Does the skunk's mouth move? Not really.
She disappeared.
The skunk is kind of a relative of boring beaver in a way. I mean, it's sort of a realistic.
Chimpanzee. It's a monkey.
A chimpanzee.
I mean, she has the skunk. Abby has the skunk.
I'm just trying to get the pictures and the sound and everything together here.
Yes, the skunk would definitely be a boring skunk.
The wonderful. Well, I used to have a skunk. We poured some horrible cheap perfume on it. And so the skunk would come into the room and be like, oh my God, what's that horrible perfume? And it was the skunk, of course.
That's funny.
The skunk
You could
brings
call
up
her Kitty.
the daisy, yeah. The skunk brings up this interesting challenge of the puppet whose mouth doesn't move. And as we had with Boring Beaver or with the bunny puppet, if it just moves a tiny bit every time it says something, it does give the illusion of speaking. But we also run into the problem in terms of, it depends on who's going to be shearing the puppets and how. If it's really little kids, and the most important thing is that the puppet is, despite all the germs, fuzzy, and we disinfect it regularly, then it's a huggable friend, and it doesn't have to have the big eyes and the big mouth that would help it be a storyteller from a distance. But one of the things that I've done with my puppets and with my friend is to replace the eyes. When Folkmanis, which is this incredible company over in Berkeley, started producing puppets many years ago, the original puppets they made were like Gorf, the frog. They were sort of cartoony, and therefore they were very easy to read. Then they went into making their puppets very natural, to do like units on nature, which was great in terms of how they looked as animals, but wasn't good for how they worked as puppets, because we're talking for easy to read to really seem like they're talking. So depending on how the skunk felt about it, or you might want to suggest that a pair of eyes instead of a pair of glasses. You might want to have the skunk try another pair of eyes and see if those would work. They don't have to be googly eyes. I mean, on this puppet here, which is also, what is this? This isn't Folkmanis. I find these things in yard sales, and I mean, I just find them all over the place. Only a few of them were actually made for me. But this puppet here, even though its eyes are not white or, bright, and even though they're the same color as the fur, for some reason they kind of stand out. I think. Can you see the eyes on this coyote here? Yeah. Not so much.
Not quite as well.
They kind of disappear into the fur. So again, a lot. Well, does anybody have any questions about anything? I mean, we're covering, theoretically, we're covering every possible use of puppet from age 2 to age 90, and all of you have specific jobs and work environments that might require particular kinds of use. So tomorrow I'll get on to various possible library uses, but do any of you have any other thoughts other than just want to go on along this notion of developing an alter ego who can be with you and do everything you do? Anybody got any questions?
Well, I don't have a question, but I have a suggestion. I managed to find an even worse puppet than the one I had before. This is a Reptar. And since he doesn't move very well, I think it would function better if he just had his mask on all the time. He's talking through his mask. Might be a solution for a crummy puppet.
Okay, so I got funny sound at this end. Say that again.
Oh, I just thought this might be a solution for puppets that don't move very well. They're just wearing their masks to be safe.
Oh, yes. And that's really good, too. In fact, you can be a ventriloquist if you wear a mask.
I think the folk manis have gotten so lifelike and durable so that they last, that they actually aren't as flexible with moving mouth.
They don't work as well as puppets.
Yeah.
So this gets into the whole where do you get your puppets thing, and mine have come from every possible source. For years, they may still make them. Well, some of the best puppets for younger kids were those washcloths. You remember those washcloth puppets? They were kind of like washcloth. Something real, again, along the line of the raccoon or of this giraffe. Very, very simple sleeve-like construction with eyes and a mouth mostly.
Yeah, Lakeshore has those, and Oriental Trading has those. So like they're just, almost like a sock neck, and then the head.
Yeah. Well, does anybody have any specific questions about things or things that you want to do with a puppet? Again, I can only see 2 of the 30 of you, but
I'd be interested in hearing about a little bit more about the behavior management you had talked about. There were quite a few questions about that before, and that's true, Lauren. I have a lot of the good puppets here.
Yeah, we'll talk a lot about that tomorrow, but I should talk about it now too. Whether or not the library has a collection of puppets, and again, most of my experience is working with school librarians. So in terms of public librarians, what kind of programs you really are able to have that are actually group activities, I'm not really sure what those would be other than during a summer reading program. But some librarians have ongoing groups throughout the year. The thing about the puppets is, especially with really young kids, well, four things about behavior. First, if you take a young child and all of a sudden you put a animal puppet with a large mouth in her face or his face, the reaction may not be positive. It is a large animal with a big mouth. And once we went over to a friend's house with a young child, they were sure that the child would really like Maynard, but the child mostly hid while Maynard was there and was heard to say to his mother, "When are they leaving?" He did not like the great big mouth of the moose so close. And if we're using animal puppets, which I tend to do, it's worthwhile when you think of younger children. These are not only do they acquire a life of their own, and they will say things that you would never say and behave in ways that you wouldn't, but they're also animals. So if you give 6 children each an animal puppet, they will bite each other. You say, no, these aren't for, well, they immediately are. They're animals, they have mouths, and they will bite each other. So I've handled this in a couple of ways. Let's imagine a group, again, I don't know. Let's imagine a group of 7-year-olds. This is a random age. And let's suppose there's 8 of them, and they have 8 puppets. The rules, whether they've made their own puppets out of a sock or whether they've borrowed them from a library collection, the rules would be when it's not your puppet's turn, puppet is off your hand in your lap. Like if you're taking turns, maybe the puppets are taking turns. We are going to recite our favorite poems. My turn first. So if they're all taking a turn around a circle to introduce their puppets, I'm Denise, and I'm a giraffe, and I live with Harvey, or whoever it is. Then when that child was through, she would take her puppet off, put it in her lap, and then we would hear the next one. because they will stay alive. If they're on your hand, they're alive. And their attention might wander. Look over there. Very much the way a 4-year-old's attention will wander no matter what you do. So then and this was in a school setting, we would always say, okay, here's your puppet. The puppet's rules are just the same as your rules. Whatever it is you do when we sit in a circle, that's the expectation for the puppet. And if the puppet would act out, the child was never blamed. We would say, like if it was Rocky, "Hi, no, I don't want to stop talking because my story is more interesting." Rocky, do you remember our agreement? "Yeah, but I don't care." "Well, you're going to have a timeout and let the next puppet have its turn." And then you tell the child, he really does need a timeout, and then they will be in charge of disciplining their puppet. So you never blame the child for having the puppet bite or call out. You say, "I'm sorry, but you've got to teach Arthur the coyote not to bite other people, or he can't be part of the puppet group." And that way they don't feel like they're being blamed, and they're also getting some control over what's really hard to control. It's really hard for a 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old to control an animal puppet that's on their hand, which is both the good and the bad news. They're going to become animated rather easily. They're going to, if you can channel it, they're going to come to life with remarkable results depending on what kind of little assignment you give them. So in a group, I would have the children go one at a time. I would never start off with in fact, I might not even end up with trying to do a puppet play. With younger children especially, what's going on with the person next to them is going to be more interesting and more compelling than trying to remember a whole bunch of things. You have 4 6-year-olds doing 5 6-year-olds doing a play. Well, it's what so-and-so next to you is doing behind stage that's going to get your attention, and you're going to forget, no, you can't turn your puppet away from the audience. Hard enough for adults in theater to remember you can't face away from the audience, let alone get 2 or 3 kids to 3/4 rotate their puppets so that they look as if they were talking to each other from the audience's point of view. It's just an awful lot. So to introduce the puppets, one at a time, the puppets are given little assignments like sing us a little song, bring in your favorite nursery rhyme, tell us what your favorite food is, tell us what you did yesterday. You can give these little assignments to the puppets. And then again, to give the children control over the puppets by having them use one at a time and by having them follow the same rules as the adults do. The funniest example of this I ever remember, I was a teacher I was a visiting teacher. I was a music and drama teacher that year. And there was a 4th grade class. It was a long, long time ago. I don't know if you remember this far back, for the animal puppets. They were an early Muppet thing. They had flaming orange hair, and they had great big eyes. Animal! Kind of like the Cookie Monster, only more elaborate and able to get into more trouble. So all the boys wanted animal puppets. Animal. Small class size, but nevertheless, we had 8 boys with animal puppets who were allowed to come into the classroom. We would start off each day with a morning meeting, and the animal puppets would come to the meeting. But of course, the animals, being animals and not only puppets, but being puppets by definition, who had no control over their own behavior virtually, we had to have a way of controlling them. And one of the teachers found 8 gerbil cages, which were pinned in the basement of the building. And she brought up the gerbil cages and she stuck them along one wall. And when the animals couldn't behave, they had to go stay in their gerbil cases. And so the animals would join morning meeting, and we would remind the animals, animal, listen, today, animal, be good. Animal, listen to everyone. Okay, that's wonderful. And to try to get through the morning meeting without interrupting, and not one of those animal puppets all year long ever made it through one single 15-minute morning meeting.
Wasn't Animal a drummer too?
The whole time in their gerbil cages. But everyone loved it. And everyone loved the group effort to try to control 8 animal puppets simultaneously, with 8 9-year-old boys behind them. It was hilarious. So that was extreme. Yeah, the group dynamics, if that's why I like to give assignments that are presentations one at a time, if you have a little puppet group, so that the kids take turns. They'll also be able to watch each other from the audience or the viewer point of view, so they'll be able to learn from each other. Did the puppet look like it was looking at the ceiling, which is the most common error? Is that the puppet's just not tipped down? Could you hear what the puppet had to say? And again, it can all be directed towards the puppet, so there's no direct critique. Even in a normal feedback session, there's it's not a completely safe space, because whoever has done the presenting always feels like somebody might make a negative judgment about what they've done when you get feedback from other children. But if the feedback is positive feedback for the puppet, it's really helpful. Well, zebra, it would really help if you spoke a little louder. Again, it's direct, and it helps build this imaginative world. It helps validify the separate existence of the puppet, and it helps the child learn what's going to make the puppet communicate more easily with the other puppets. What else? I was thinking something else about that. Two examples that were kind of interesting to me. There was a very, very, very shy girl who didn't want to do the presentation all by herself. Each puppet was just doing a little nursery rhyme, but she just couldn't face doing it. And then she decided on her own that her puppet was very shy. And she brought her puppet out, and her puppet didn't want to perform, and she urged the puppet on. She encouraged the puppet. And eventually the puppet, even though it had a very faint voice and the girl had to tell us what it was saying, the puppet overcame its shyness. I saw other examples of this when there was a girl who was bad at math, and she was not really any worse than most kids, but she had in her mind that she was bad at math, and that led to her being bad at math. That led into a spiral of, I don't know how to do math. And so we gave her this helper. We gave her this ostrich who was very, very good at math, and sort of oddly behaved, but very good at math. And what happened was not that it turned the girl into a genius math student, but it enabled her to completely relax and basically perform at grade level as long as the ostrich was helping. It lifted some kind of anxiety off. Another parallel story, and again, make of these stories and anecdotes what you will and put it to whatever use you can think of. There were a bunch of boys, adolescent boys, that were in a songwriting class that I had, and it was a special optional activity on Friday afternoons, and also in a puppetry group. And basically they would use the groups just because they weren't academic, and they got to goof off and not really do anything. And I was thinking, this is a bad idea. It's really hard to keep control of these guys. They're just a bunch of wise guys anyway. And then one day, everybody's nightmare came true. There was a visiting artist in school. I myself, of course, been a visiting artist for most of my life. But all the teachers in the school, there goes the daily curriculum. How are they still going to fit in the history lesson? Oh my God, how do they make this relevant? Do they really have to fit this into their reading program? Here comes the visiting artist. And so we had to double up, and I had to do the music and the puppetry class at the same time. And a miraculous thing happened. There was this pile of puppets there, and the guy, somebody, they were completely inappropriate because these were like 7th grade boys. But one of them grabbed a puppet. And said, right, I'm going to write a song. Got so drunk I could not see, drove my car into a tree. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. And all the other boys put the puppets on. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I said, okay, let's write some more songs. So we wrote some songs. We toned them down to be appropriate for K-8 and a parent and audience. And these are boys who would not sing in the school choir because it wasn't cool. But we built a puppet stage, and they would belt songs out from behind the puppet stage at top volume because nobody could see them. And it was the puppets singing. And they had all convinced themselves that they couldn't write songs. But amazingly enough, the puppets all had an easy time writing songs. And the puppets made up all these songs. Again, there's something to unlock here. I'm not sure how it happens, but I do know that frequent use of puppets can get children over all kinds of shyness and inhibitions, and also enable them to accomplish stuff that they might not be able to otherwise, including writing stories, making stories up, if there's or retelling stories. One of the uses I think that's good for all teachers and librarians is to, those of you who may be comfortable reading out loud might not be comfortable doing storytelling with no book to hold up. But puppets are a wonderful way to ease into doing that, because as I was indicating earlier, if the puppet forgets how the story goes, it's not your problem. It's the puppet's problem. And now you and any children present are helping the puppet remember how a story goes. It pulls my ego, your ego, completely out of the equation. You're no longer exposed. You're no longer, oh, I hope I don't mess up this story. And that's why I found that with Maynard, I could just improvise stories endlessly. I could just make up stories endlessly. And also, there were fairy tales that I didn't really remember very well that Maynard had wonderful remembered mixed up versions to. So if you have a time when you would read to the kids and you'd like to take that next step to doing storytelling, or even if you're a storyteller already and you'd like to take a next step and do it with a puppet, the unusual characteristics of the puppet can often make a really unusual and unique story that you never would have thought of before, or give you a version of a story that you never would have thought of before. Maynard's books were kind of developed with in mind the notion of, The Uglified Ducky was the first book, but it's got an audio CD in it now, and we're going to, in a couple of weeks, just make sure these are accessible online so everyone has a copy of the book, can access the audio recording, because of course, all these were done in the old days when people had CD players. But the idea was that kids could take the books home, or buy the books, and then they could stick on the audio CD. They could follow along in the pictures, and they could hear the moose tell the story. And this, especially I did a book tour of Texas libraries with Rapunzel and the Seven Dwarfs, which was the second one of the moose books. And I had a boy to me and said, I would like to be an author. I like to write books, but I can't spell things very well, and I don't really know how to write very well. And I was able to say to him, as I did at all my author's visits, you want to know how this book came into being? Well, I never wrote down a single word of any one of my stories until I was 60 years old. Never wrote down one single word. And they say, well, how'd you do them? And I said, I just made them up and remembered them. I said, now, these books here, these are my stories. Yes, they are. They're stories by Maynard, but they're as told to Willie Claflin, because I was able to write them down and transcribe them. So I was able to say to this student, you can learn on your own, and also with technological advice and help, and an editor, how to put words down on a page. But what can't be taught to you is how to make up stuff. But if you have a puppet friend that can make up stuff, and you can either record what it says on your dad's phone, or you can remember, even if it's not the same as it was last time, you'll be writing a story. You'll be making a book. And maybe you'll find an illustrator, like I found James Stimson, who helped design the James and the Giant Peach characters in that movie, to do the pictures for you. So I would encourage you to use puppets to do any kind of storytelling that you might normally do in a group.
Hey, Willie,
Of course,
I remember
yeah.
you talking about working with some high schoolers with the puppets. Could you speak about that a little bit? Because we think of puppets with the babies or the toddlers, and I think have a natural fear of working with, I know you mentioned the club that you just talked about, but I think that would be helpful for people to hear about too.
Well, it kind of like, remember the raccoon stories this morning. I mean, the raccoon is such a huge hit with 5th, 6th, 7th grade, because he's like a younger brother who does all the bad things. So when kids hear that there's going to be, again, it was in Texas. It was actually a junior high, and one of the letters said, Dear Mr. Claflin, when I heard we were going to have a puppeteer, I thought, oh no, little kid stuff, how horrible. But you were the funniest thing I'd ever seen. So I used humor a lot, and I discovered the first time I took Maynard into a high school class and had him tell a story, I was terrified. It was like, it was like sophomores. It was a rural high school in Maine. I thought, my God, what's going to happen? And but Maynard tells stories on all levels. So, well, here's what happened. I went into the class and I told this story, which they had no idea, but is based on Snow White and Rose Red. I told the following story. This takes 10 minutes, but it's an illustration of something that engaged these kids to the degree that they formed a puppet group and started making up stories. Anyway, here's the story for, 15-year-olds? I guess it was at the time. This story is called So What and Drop Dead. Once upon a time, there were two cute little girls named Snow White and Rose Red. They lived with their mummy in a cottage, and they all say please and thank you. And they were so nice, they smiled and smiled so much, it made their faces hurt. And every morning the yellow bird of cheerfulness would come to their window. Snow White, Rose Red, time to get up out of bed. And they would say, thank you, yellow bird of cheerfulness, and please tell all the furry forest animals to have a nice day. Well, one morning they were out in the forest saying hello to all the cute little forest creatures, when what should they spy? A nastified, little pointified, dwarfy, bearded man. He got his beard snaggled up on a bramble bush, and he was extremely angrified. Ah, let go of my beard, you stupid bush, I hate you! You disgustifying dog breath, worm brain bush, let go of my beard! Well, they begin to giggle. They have never heard rude language before. This angrified the dwarfy person twice more than before. What are you laughing at? You obnoxious, despicable, dog breath, worm brain girls! Help! Well, I can't figure out what to do. Only thing they can figure out to do to set him free is to cut off the end of his beard. But is he grateful? No. Look what you did to my beard, you disgustifying dog breath, worm brain girls! You do that again, they're gonna get you. Well, they go home to their mummy. Hello, girls. So nice to see your shining faces. How was your day in the forest? Mummy, what does obnoxious, despicable dog breath worm brain mean? Girls, I don't know where you heard language like that, but I forbid you to speak that way in my house. Okay, say Snow White. Okay, say Rose Red. But that night when they're in bed, Snow White say, hey, Rose Red, let's go find a dwarfy man tomorrow and learn more bad language. So off they go into the forest in search of bad words and bad language. And they have not gone far before they see the little nastified, dwarfy, pointed, bearded man again. And this time he has his beard stuck in a crack in a tree. Help, help, despicable, obnoxious, dog breath, worm brain girls, help! Well, they don't know what to do. So once again, they decide maybe they had better cut off the end of his beard. But luckily, he slipped out just at the right moment and disappeared into the forest. Swoosh! Well, next day, same thing, out in the forest. Here they come, and once again, there he is. Got his beard snaggled up once again. Well, this time a great big fish is going to pull him into the forest pond and drownify him. Help, 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 obnoxious, despicable girls, help, help, get this fish, let go of my beard. Well, they don't know what to do, and again, they have to cut off the end of his beard. And is he grateful? No. You wrecked my beard, Snow White and Rose Red, so I am going to put a spell on you. I change your name from Snow White and Rose Red into So What and Drop Dead. And from now on, that is all you will ever be able to say. Well, they go home to their mummy. Girls, so nice to see your shining faces. I have your favorite dinner, rainbow trout and wild blumberry muffins. So what? Say, so what? You drop dead, they drop dead. Well, the dwarfy curses on their brains is all I can say. Girl, say to mommy, you speak like that to me again, there will be big trouble. Full wood, said Full Wood. You drop dead, said Drop Dead. I am warning you, say to mommy, one more time and that's it. Full wood, said Full Wood. You drop dead, said Drop Dead. That's it, shut up, say to mommy. Well, things were not very cheerful in that house no more. Little furry forest aminals. All they can hear coming from the cottage is Full Wood, drop dead, shut up. Now, yellow bird of cheerfulness, fly away, and a tear falls on the ground. Sploop. Well, one wintry evening, they were sitting around the fireplace, insultifying each other. Full Wood, drop dead, shut up. When there was a knock upon the door. Girl, say to mommy, go see who's at the door. On this freezing cold wintry night, maybe some poor stranger is about to freeze to death. Full Wood, said Full Wood. Yeah, drop dead, said Drop Dead. Oh, shut up, say to mommy. And she go to the door and opened the door, and there in the doorway was a huge grizzly bear. Help, help, said the bear. Please, good woman, let me warm my paws by your fire. I am about to freeze to death. Certainly, Mr. Bear, said the mommy. You come over and warm your paws by the fire until you are nice and toastly warm. So the bear shuffled over to the fireplace. Oh, thank you, good woman. Thank you, thank you. How dare I was so cold, I would have froze to death. So what? Said So what? You drop dead, said Drop Dead. And do you know what happened? The bear dropped dead. Poof! And poof, it disappeared, and there was a kingly king with a crown. See what you've done, say to mommy? Now we have a dead bear in our living room. That's what happens when you use bad language. Ooh, oh my goodness. My goodness, look, there's a kingly king with a crown. Thank you, rude girls, said the king. The dwarfy man put a spell on me, and I can't find. I had to stay my bear shape and could not be a king until I completed my quest and found the two rudest girls in the world. And you have broken the spell. Now I can be a king, and I can marry your mommy and make her the queen. Full Wood, said Full Wood. Drop dead, said Drop Dead. Well, they are the king and queen, huh? They don't gotta put up with that behavior. So they issue a royal proclamation. No more saying so what and drop dead within the confines of the royal realm, or various harsh and unusual punishments shall follow. Poor Snow White and Rose Red. The dwarfy spell is still on their brains. And so the winter passed, and springtime came, and once again they were walking hand in hand through the forest. And guess who they spy? The little nastified, pointified, dwarfy, bearded man would be the correct response at this juncture of the narrative. This time, a great big crow was about to carry him off into the sky. Help, 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 obnoxious, despicable, dog-breath, worm-brain girls, I'm going to die. Full Wood, said Full Wood. Yeah, drop dead, said Drop Dead. No, 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 said the dwarfy man. Please, please, I take back the spell. You can have your real names back and any reward you want. So they chase off the old crow. The little dwarfy man is spared. Oh, thank you, said the little dwarfy man. What may I do to repay you? Well, say Snow White, I would like to be Snow White once again, and I want to live in a tall, tall tower with wigs and gowns and jewels and chandeliers and bonbons. Not me, say Drop Dead. I like my name. I like to be Drop Dead, and I am going to marry you, you despicable dwarfy person. Learn more bad language. So they were married the very next day in an obnoxious, despicable, dwarfly marriage ceremony. Do you, Drop Dead, take this obnoxious, despicable, dog-breath, worm-brained, dwarfy person to be your significant other until such time as you both drop dead? I do, she said, and they lived happily ever afterwards. But I must explain one last thing. Pay attention. The yellow bird of cheerfulness did not come to their window. No, the buzzard of bad language came to their window and teach them a new rude word every day. So that's the moose tale for adolescents. These guys completely cracked up, and it got them writing parodies, because nothing will engage many junior high or high school student like writing parodies of something, or something that incorporates forbidden language, which that one does. And obviously I would never do that for a second grader, but for that age it worked perfectly. And then for adults at the National Festival, the stories get very complicated, like Pegamoose and the Gorgonzola, which is a mashup of Greek mythology and requires a knowledge of Greek myths. And I mean, its humor lies in reference to Greek myths all the way through. Interestingly enough, not that puppet group, but the next one that I ran for high school kids was in a city, and there they came up. They had some puppets that told actually what would amount to a really scary HBO crime drama, and it was built on a puppet parody of Little Red Riding Hood. I'd offered them Little Red Riding Hood parody of, we can do this tomorrow. We can plug into a parody so that you can create original versions of old stories, and each one can be different from the one before. You're my timekeeper, Amy. How am I doing here?
Well, it's 4:45, so you are off the hook anytime you want to be off the hook.
I'm still happy for a specific question, because if anybody had a question, then I would be able to. Meanwhile, I'll just go on running my mouth, of course, but I'd love to see what concerns, and we can remind people tomorrow that if we can figure out how to set it up, that for those people that do wind up really developing a puppet and want to use it in a variety of settings for a variety of uses, that we could have an ongoing Zoom group that met every 2 weeks or something to check in with each other and meet each other's puppets, which is hard to do in this particular format right now. I really miss being right there with you all. So that but anyway, we get to do this, which is wonderful. Thanks to Amy, and thanks to the Library Association.
Yeah, one thing I was thinking of is, you know how puppets will open the door, and sometimes when that door gets open to a child, they may just really gush the information, and it might be beyond that which we can handle. So that I'd be interested in that, because hearing more of how you've dealt with that, because I know you did some different specialized training with that too, just as an educator, and so that would be not crossing the line where we're, how to navigate that line where we're not in their business and revealing too much information. Well, you know what I mean. I can see it in your.
Well, say a little more.
Well, I guess a lot of times therapy will use puppetry.
Yeah.
And I can see it being a very thin line to navigate in certain scenarios. And
yes.
I would enjoy more wisdom about that.
Yeah. And we'll certainly spend at least part of our hour that we're all together tomorrow talking about specific ways that we've used puppets in classroom to talk about stuff like bullying or race relationships or sexual orientation, or or any of those, or what's going on. Again, it's all kind of classroom based for me, because that's my experience in the old days. A dynamic in the classroom, something that's going on in the room, or about personal feelings. And again, it can really help. It sometimes really helps. I had my rabbit puppet back in the days when he was much gentler and less boasty. He was nicer in the old days. Ran an advice column, and children would write letters to the rabbit and ask him what to do about situations they were in, and the rabbit would reply. And it was a very safe space, and the place where I wouldn't hesitate from making a rabbit-brained response to things like the death of a pet or something. The rabbit would have something gentle and wise to say. I would obviously steer away from other stuff that, in other words, you don't want to get in the job of being a fake therapist, because it's dangerous territory. Yeah.
There were some comments in the chat that Heather said that a Zoom meeting with the puppets would be really neat, and Clara says too she would like that. I suspect you're going to have a lot of people interested in that. Lena would like to know, do you have any particular advice for using a puppet on an online platform versus in person? And I know you started talking about that a little bit today, and I suspect that's going to come out more tomorrow too.
It probably will, and I'll talk again about it tomorrow. What I have to say in all honesty is that for me to try to do puppets on an online platform is virtually impossible.
So hard for you, yeah.
And utterly simple in person.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm only beginning to wrestle with what it means.
Mm-hmm.
Because for me, so much of the puppet development came from live interaction with children.
Mm-hmm.
Things they'd ask the puppets, where the puppets would relate. So we're all working on this together, and it'll be wonderful to be able to add this to
Mm-hmm.
in-person stuff and not simply have to be confined to it, because then it will be just an amplification of what we can do live, which will be great.
Right. Well, as you go home and start messing around with your puppets, if you think of questions for Willy, write them down. And if I might encourage you to do that. I know
And also,
I forget.
one more thing.
So, yeah.
Go ahead. No, if you could, and again, I don't know what the opportunity will be for us all to see and or hear you tomorrow. But if you could bring your puppet back tomorrow with if you could think of a name for it, a name and a voice and a little simple introduction, so it could introduce itself to the rest of us.
Mm-hmm.
Because ideally this would be a hands-in, hands-on thing where we were taking turns having our puppets present simple things to each other, and we could look at each other and give each other feedback that way.
Right. So we still have 2 more puppetry sessions with Willy. And then at the end, he's also going to do a musical session for us, some of the songs that he does with his son, and then some other songs that he thought we can incorporate into programming or just enjoy. So,
Amy, will most of the folks who might tune into that, but they will be working with younger children, because I can do an hour of story songs and stories that are sort of tailored for 4 to 9.
yeah, it'll be
Just
from
for
0
them.
to 18. It'll be a
Okay.
mix. We have some people that specifically just work with teenagers. We have other people that work with baby bump to 18 is kind of what we say. So it just, so then that even incorporates families. So it's a wide gamut. So think National Storytelling Festival, and think elementary, middle school, high school, and
Everybody at once.
yeah, we run
It's
the
also
gamut.
fascinating. Also fascinating because performers will always say, "Okay, I can't possibly tell the same stories to kindergartners that I'm telling to the 7th graders." That's why we break it up into K3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But we'll do it. We'll just take whatever is useful.
Whatever, I just say do what you enjoy, and everyone will just be able to incorporate it to their own. So.
And it'll be recorded so they can use it later if you want.
Correct. We will keep it and save it, and also for you to have access as well. So Willy, thank you for this afternoon. This has just been Christmas in September, I gotta say.
Well,
So
thank you all so much. Thank you for attending. Yeah, I've really enjoyed this.
And we'll see you again 1 o'clock our time, and let's see, 10 o'clock your time. And
That's right.
We'll start up tomorrow. We start at 10 o'clock Eastern, 9 o'clock Central, and we'll have 3 rooms running. So come with your choice of where you'd like or be willing to bounce around. The links will be the same. And thank you so very much for being here and being a part of this and being willing to learn from all of Willy's knowledge. So you guys have a great night. And again, thank you, Willy. You are deeply appreciated.
Thank you.
Rest well.
I will. You too.
Tell Jacqueline thank you again.
Bye-bye. I will.